A woman checked into a hotel in Bergen, Norway, under a false name. She carried multiple passports, wore elegant clothing, spoke several languages, and moved across Europe like someone trying very carefully not to exist. Then, in November of 1970, her burned body was discovered in a remote valley known as Isdalen. Near the corpse, investigators found melted plastic bottles, sleeping pills, burned documents, and traces of gasoline. The labels had been removed from her clothes. Her fingerprints were erased from items she carried. And every identity connected to her turned out to be false. More than 50 years later, no one knows who she truly was. This is the Dark Sermon, Stories from the Shadows. The Isdal Woman mystery begins on November 29, 1970. A father and his two daughters were hiking through the Isdalen Valley near Bergen, Norway. The area was isolated and steep, surrounded by dark rock formations and sparse trees. Locals had long referred to the place as Death Valley because of the number of suicides that had occurred there over the years. As the family moved through the valley, they noticed something disturbing among the rocks. A burned body. Police arrived quickly. The scene was horrifying. The woman had been severely burned. Much of her body was charred beyond recognition. Around her lay unusual objects, melted bottles smelling strongly of gasoline, burned paper, a broken umbrella, rubber boots, a wristwatch, jewelry, and empty containers of sleeping pills. There was no identification. The labels had been carefully removed from her clothing. Even more unsettling, investigators would later discover that every trace pointing toward her identity appeared intentionally concealed. The autopsy deepened the mystery. The woman had died from a combination of burns and carbon monoxide poisoning. Toxicology reports showed she had consumed a large quantity of sleeping pills before her death. Soot found in her lungs suggested she had still been alive while burning. Her neck also showed signs of bruising. Investigators could not determine whether she had taken her own life, been murdered, or been forced into a staged death scene. But this was only the beginning. Soon after the discovery, police located 2 suitcases belonging to the woman at the Bergen railway station. Inside, they found wigs, sunglasses, maps, currency from several countries, notebooks filled with coded writing, and clothing from across Europe. Again, all labels had been removed. The notebooks became one of the most important clues in the case. The pages contained strange sequences of letters and numbers. At first glance, they looked meaningless. But investigators eventually concluded the codes represented records of the woman's travels across Europe. The entries corresponded to dates and locations. And what emerged painted the picture of someone constantly moving under assumed identities. Witnesses across Norway described an elegant, well-dressed woman traveling alone. She checked into hotels under different names. She frequently changed appearance using wigs. She avoided giving personal details, and she often requested rooms with balconies or views facing outward. Staff members remembered her as quiet but observant. Some recalled that she seemed paranoid. Others believed she was highly disciplined. One hotel worker later described how she would sometimes sit silently for long periods, appearing tense whenever other guests approached too closely. The names she used were eventually traced across multiple countries. None were real. Police discovered at least 8 false identities connected to the woman using Belgian, Swiss, and other European aliases. Investigators also learned that she had traveled extensively through Norway during the months before her death, visiting remote areas, military-adjacent regions, and coastal towns. This immediately drew the attention of Norwegian intelligence services. The Cold War was still underway, and Bergen held strategic importance because of its military activity and submarine monitoring facilities. Soon, theories began to spread. Was the Isdal woman a spy? Several witnesses reported hearing the woman speak German. Others believed she spoke French. Some thought she had an accent from Central Europe. Her dental work added further intrigue. Forensic experts noted that her teeth contained unusual gold dental crowns, more commonly associated at the time with certain parts of Europe. Some investigators believed this suggested she may have originated from somewhere in Eastern or Central Europe, but no definitive conclusion was ever reached. As authorities dug deeper, the woman became even more elusive. Hotel records showed her behaving strangely before disappearing between destinations. Witnesses described her avoiding eye contact and carefully monitoring her surroundings. One man claimed he saw her walking with two unidentified men dressed in dark coats shortly before her death. Another witness reported seeing a distressed woman matching her description hiking near Isdalen days before the body was found. Then there were the witnesses who came forward years later claiming the woman may have been under surveillance. Some believed she was connected to espionage operations involving NATO movements in Norway. Others theorized she was part of intelligence networks operating quietly across Europe during the Cold War. But investigators never found proof, only fragments, only shadows. And perhaps the most chilling detail of all was this: no one ever reported her missing. No family came forward, no friends searched for her, no embassy claimed her. It was as though she had appeared briefly inside Europe under borrowed names, and then vanished completely. In 1971, Norwegian authorities officially ruled the case a probable suicide. But many investigators remained unconvinced. Too many details felt staged. Too many clues pointed toward deliberate concealment. Why remove every label from her clothing? Why carry multiple passports? Why use coded notebooks? Why move constantly between identities? And if she intended to disappear forever, why choose such a public and violent death? The mystery only deepened over time. Decades later, journalists and independent investigators reopened the case. Modern forensic testing was performed on preserved evidence, including her jaw and teeth. In 2018, renewed DNA analysis suggested the woman may have originated from somewhere near southern Germany or the border region surrounding France. But again, nothing definitive emerged. Her identity remained unknown. Researchers also uncovered additional witness accounts previously overlooked during the original investigation. One witness described seeing the woman near the valley, accompanied by two men shortly before her death. Another claimed the woman appeared frightened and hesitant while traveling. Some investigators began to question whether the Isdal woman had truly been acting alone at all, yet every theory carried problems. If she was a spy, for whom did she work? If she was fleeing someone, why leave behind coded notebooks and disguises? If she intended suicide, why erase every trace of herself beforehand? And if she was murdered, who managed to remove her identity so completely that even modern forensic science still cannot name her? The Isdal woman exists in that terrible space between fact and uncertainty. Unlike legends or ghost stories, this mystery is real. A real woman walked through Europe under false names. A real body was discovered burned among the rocks of Isdalen. And somewhere in the world, Her true identity died with her. Perhaps that is why the story continues haunting people decades later, because hidden beneath the espionage theories and forensic evidence is something deeply human: loneliness. The image of a woman moving silently through hotel corridors, train stations, and foreign cities while belonging nowhere. A person who spoke to many people but was never truly known by any of them. Even in death, she remained anonymous. No grave visited by loved ones, no photographs confirmed by family, no final explanation, only questions. The Isdal Valley still exists today outside Bergen, cold, silent, surrounded by steep, dark hills, and somewhere within its shadows lingers one of Europe's most haunting unsolved mysteries. The woman with many names. The woman no one could identify. The woman who entered the valley alone and never came back. This is the Dark Sermon. Stories from the shadows. If this story unsettled you, there are more sermons waiting in the dark. Subscribe and step back into the shadows with us